Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Today we continue to discuss about the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Paths, and we discussed the last one, the right mindfulness. Let me share with you. And we discussed about the four foundations of mindfulness, including mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the feeling, mindfulness of the state of mind, and mindfulness of mental object phenomena, including the 7 factors of enlightenment and some of 5 hindrances of the mind. So we discussed those 7 factors of enlightenment already. Now we move on to discuss the 5 hindrances. Here the Buddha lists out 5 hindrances in general, but actually there's all kind of obstruction, hindrances within our mind. So that's just the general items that we could recognize. Now, we know that meditation is good for us at the beginning, the middle, and good in the end if we do the practice frequently and diligently. But of course, this is the reason in the beginning of meditation, resistance in later on in meditation, and this resistance even later on in meditation. So things come to us naturally, and of course they may have some kind of problems. We may encounter some kind of difficulties or challenges when we do the practice, whether we do the practice in our daily life or in our activities during the day, at night, and so forth. So in doing everything, anything, there's all kind of problems we have to recognize. So that's why the Buddha reminds us that there's some obstruction or hindrances that we need to recognize so that we could overcome them. So the general hindrances that includes the 5 hindrances, the sensual desire, ill will, sloth, torpor, restlessness, and worry, and skeptical doubt. So when we talk about the sensual desires, again, our minds always hunt for any types of sensual desires, whether it's sexual desire, food desire or craving, or the wealth, or the fames, entertainments, and so forth. So we get used of those things in our daily life, and of course we need to recognize what are the needs, what are the wants. The needs, that mean the things that we need to have to survive. The want, that means something that go beyond the needs. So whenever we fulfill the needs, it would help us to survive in this world. And whenever we move forward to the wanted. So again, that's where the problems come from. That we seek for things that we would not stop to seek for them. So the Buddha give analogy like the more we drink the salty water from the oceans, the more thirsty we are. So it means there's no way for us to fulfill ourselves when we obtain certain types of sensual pleasure, whether it's the food, whether it's the possession, the sensation, and so forth. But that's why we need to recognize them as the hindrance that cover our wisdom, that hindrance our spiritual practice. So it's like the water dyed with the bright lights or colors. So it could not have the purity at all. So let me show you the video clips.
I'm not speaking in third person. He just started an Instagram account, and when his first photo goes live, he's excited to see all the notifications come pouring in. This photo of some palm trees got 12 likes. Awesome. The next photo gets 13 likes, after that 12, then 14 likes. The next he uploads a picture of his legs on the beach, and people get weirded out. This photo only gets 2 likes. His parents are very supportive. All right, now let's fast forward 1 year. Today, Matt opens up his Instagram to find out that he's got 50 likes on his last upload. By all accounts, he should be thrilled, but he's not. See, over the course of the past year, his audience has grown, and he's gotten more and more likes per photo. With really great photos, he'd get over 100. He'd come to expect more out of each post. Think about this for a minute. At one point, I was happy to get 12 likes for every photo, but now when I'm getting over 4 times that number, I'm not satisfied. There's a bigger picture at play here, and it has something to do with our happiness. Hedonic adaptation is a theory that says that humans tend to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness. As our expectations rise, our desires increase as well. The result? No long-lasting increase in well-being. This is why, in the long run, we're not happier when we get more stuff, more money, or more followers. Now, of course, money is a little bit different from likes. Likes don't keep the electricity on or put food on the table. We all need our basic needs met. In my life, there have been times when I've had a lot of money and close to no money. If given the choice, I take a lot. But I think we need to be honest with ourselves about how much money we truly need to be happy. We need to answer the question, how much is enough? That's the question entrepreneur and blogger Melissa Griffin asked herself when she felt swept up in the rat race. She'd been running a successful business for years, but that itch for more never went away.
Anyway, so it's about 6 minutes. So again, we see that in these video clips that we need to ask our question that how much is enough for us for sensual desire, for things that we look for things that we attach to. We need to ask that question. And it's saying that like the bucket doesn't have any hole. That means whichever thing we put inside that bucket, it's not enough for us. We will not satisfy. So that's why the Buddha say it's like the salty water of the ocean. So the more we drink, the more thirsty we are. The more we chase after this sensual desire, the more we look for. So again, with that kind of wanting, there's no way for us to remain calm, to be peaceful within our mind. That's why, in order to pursue the spiritual path, we need to let go of the wants. Of course, we want to have the needs to survive in our daily life on this earth, but the things we need to let go are the wants, the desires, the craving, um, because of those kind of desire, those kinds of craving that bring the sufferings to ourselves and others. And that's the second uh, mm, uh, proof of sufferings that we studied before. So the cravings considered as the poisons uh, that mm, harm us and obstruct our wisdom, our pure nature. So that's why we need to recognize so that we can remain peaceful. We can find our own good nature. So, of course, everyone else has different point of views, but we need to put this question in considerations that whether we pursue for sensory desire or whether we want to pursue for something is important in our life. Of course, we can pursue for wealth, for sensual desire, for food, and so forth. But again, they would not last forever. And on the way that we pursue them, most of the time, we create some kind of bad karma. For example, if we are really person for the wealth, we would use any means to oppress other people or to use some scams to take people monies, uh, to abuse or take advantage on other people and so forth. And definitely sooner or later we have to pay for the price for those greedy minds uh, or greedy action that bring the harm to others. So uh, of course, for the people that still live in the world, somehow it's better for us to have some kind of balances. So while we fulfill our responsibilities to go out to work, to run business, and so forth, to earn income so that we can support ourselves and our family members. In meantime, we may need to take care of our own mind, of our spiritual life, so that we have that type of well-round um, happiness. Otherwise, even we are billionaires, even we are um, wealthy, but our state of mind is so uh, uh, um, disaster. That means we could not control our mind. We could not control our anger or desire. We just let them to control us. Again, we will bring the disaster to ourselves and others. That's why here, um, while we're working on the path of spirituality, or at least when we try to help ourselves to find the calmness or the real peacefulness within ourselves, we need to recognize uh, again the poisons of our mind, that the craving. So we need to let go of them. We need to uh, overcome those sensual pleasures so that we can have more times we spend more times for our practice of meditation. We spend more time to transform our mentality. So that's more understandable. It's more reasonable, more beneficial for ourselves and others. Otherwise, if we just chase after those sensual desire, regardless of whichever they are, we get hooked, and we would raise some type of karma, and we have to pay back soon later. So even when we do meditation, we need to put down, let go of any kind of expectation. We have the tendency to expect to get the highest thing, the most beautiful things, the most pleasure things, and with that kind of tendency, when we do meditations, we expect to attain some sort of spiritual and attainments. So, as meditators, if we want to move on our spiritual path, if we really want to recognize the state of mind, it's better to let go of those expectations, of those seeking, because as long as we have the thought of expectation to attain some sort of spiritual attainments, that kind of thoughts cover our wisdom already, and that is not beneficial on our path. So that's why, for example, when we really focus on the breath, and suddenly we have the thought that, yes, I want to know more about my mind. I want to have the peacefulness right now. I want to have calmness right now. But with that kind of expectation, with that kind of urge, there's no way for us to have the peacefulness and calmness. It's like when we have a cup of water, the muddy water, and at first we keep that muddy water to sail down inside that cup, but because of the urge, we want to have those dust of particle and sail down quickly, and we use any means to steal it. The more we steal that muddy water, the more it become murky. So the only things we need to do is just keep that cup of water still. We don't need to touch anything. We don't need to uh, uh, disturb that water. So that's why in meditation, we need to let go of everything, even the thought that we want to have the calmness, that we want to have the peacefulness. We need to let go of them. I'll talk about the attachment to any kind of sensual pleasure. So let me show you this video clips to illustrate that we need to let go of those things. Yeah. Oh, okay, so I couldn't find. Anyway, so let me tell you a story. So one day, the Buddha told Venerable Ananda to get the water from a lake. So yes, he went there with his bowl and be ready to take the water from the lake so that the Buddha could drink. But when he got there, he saw people washing their clothes. You know, the Buddha, people in the past, they didn't have washing machine, and so they just went out to the lake, the creek, or even the river to wash their clothes. And on the top of that, he saw a ox that pulled the cart uh, across the lake, and definitely the water has become muddy. So what happened then? So he could not get that muddy water for the Buddha to drink. So he went back and reported what he just saw. So the Buddha say, "Well, that's okay. Just wait for a little, and you can go back there to get the water again." So after resting for a while, so that monk he carried his bowl to the same lake again, and at that time there was no activity around the lake at all. So that's why he used his bowl to take the water back to Buddha to drink. So the story the Buddha want to uh, teach him is that you don't do anything. You just let the water uh, to settle down by itself. So those are mine. We need to let go of the desires, of the wants, of the expectations, and with that type of approach, eventually our mind would calm down by itself. We don't need to do anything. So that's the beautiful of Buddhist meditation. That what you call non-active. That's mean, especially in meditation, you just sit still and focus on your breath or any kind of object of meditation. That's all you need to do. You don't need to force your mind to calm down. You don't need to expect that you gain enlightenment. With that kind of expectation, it will block your wisdom, or it will disturb your peacefulness and calmness. So move on. Again, the ill will, when we attach to certain painful experience, we could not let go of them, and we would react in an angry way, like the sensual desire, ill will or angers is considered as the poison of the mind. If we have that kind of negative feelings, that type of anger, hatred, and so forth in our mind, again, there's no way for us to remain calm. It's like the boiling water. If we burn anything that on this way, so that's why we need to recognize the poisons within this mentality, and we discuss pretty much in the part of the second noble truth, that the cause of substance. Again, the cause of substance are the anger, the desire, and the stabilities. So they are the poison of the mind. And of course, in big companies, they have anger management programs for their employees, but somehow um, they don't recognize the opposites, the other side of anger is desire, the sensual desire. It's like the two poles uh, that our mind always swing back and forth between the anger and desire or attachment. For example, if we love someone too much, what happens if that person doesn't want us? So definitely we have some kind of anger or resentment toward that person. And so our mind always swing back and forth with those poles. And again, they are the portion of the mind that we need to let go. And so let me share with you short video clips about that poison or the rage or the hatred within our mentality. So that sometimes we do things would not come along in the way that we expect to have. You may encounter some kind of accident, some problems or challenges. That's why we angry, we frustrate, we feel desperate. And that's the past and the present too. If something doesn't go along with our wish, okay, here again for this cartoon. So sometimes again things go against our will that make us frustrated. That's why we may be angry toward things, toward the situation and other people. So that's the poison of our mind that we need to let go. Otherwise, if we block, obstruct our wisdom. And the next one is sloth and torpor. That means the heaviness or the laziness of the body and mind. That we don't have any urge or any energy to move forward, whether it's while we studying or while we are walking, especially in our practice of meditation. So it's like the poisonous snake in our lap. So it's like the pure pool of water. It's choked with all the weeds. So we need to recognize them and we need to lift up our spirit to do the practice. Otherwise, if we lazy, there's no way for us to progress in a spiritual path, especially in meditation. So it's happened in any kind of circumstances. We need to put some kind of effort in doing things, whether working for others, or whether run business, or whether go to school and so forth. We need to put some type of effort into doing things. So that's why sloth and torpor are considered as an obstruction of the mind. So let me share with you another video clips about the Buddha teaching how to have uh, mm, our laziness.
One day, while the Buddha was preaching his doctrine for the conversion of the world in the neighborhood of Savatthi, a man of great wealth who suffered from many ailments came to him with clasped hands and said, "O Lord Buddha, pardon me for my want of respect in not saluting you as I ought to, but I suffer greatly from obesity, excessive drowsiness, and other complaints, so that I cannot move without pain." The Tathagata, seeing the luxuries with which the man was surrounded, asked him, "Have you a desire to know the cause of your ailments?" And when the wealthy man expressed his willingness to learn, Buddha said, "There are 5 things which produce the condition of which you complain: opulent dinners, love of sleep, hankering after pleasure, thoughtlessness, and lack of occupation. Exercise self-control at your meals, and take on yourself some duties that will exercise your abilities and make you useful to your fellow men. In following this advice, you will prolong your life." The rich man remembered the words of the Buddha, and after some time, having recovered his lightness and youthfulness, he returned to the world-honored one. And coming this time without horses and luxuries, he said to him, "Master, you have cured my bodily ailments. I come now to seek enlightenment of the mind." And Buddha said, "The worldling nourishes his body, but the wise man nourishes his mind. He who indulges in the satisfaction of his appetite works his own destruction, but he who walks in the path will have both the salvation from evil and the prolongation of life." You see, in life, if we only feed our belly and our desires, what will become of us? If you sleep too much, walk around without any thoughts, and just chase after pleasure, without being of any use to your community or your fellow men, what will become of you? If you are now just a small young root, what kind of tree will you become if you live this way? Always find the yin and yang, the right amount of sleep, nourishment, and usefulness. Enjoy life, but also have an occupation, have a meaning in your life. Set yourself some goals, and always try to nourish your mind and grow in your mind so you can understand what happens in this universe. This is Dare to Do motivation.
And so you see, basically the Buddha taught a rich man who indulged too much in luxury life, and that's why he could not keep up with things that he's supposed to do, and that's why the Buddha remind him that he need to be diligent. So he need to reduce the food consumption or the way that he sleep, reduce the time for sleeping, and so forth. So here we recognize as sleepiness, laziness as problems for our mind. That if we could not control that type of laziness, there's no way for us to pursue any further in our spiritual path. That's why there are the hindrance of our spiritual paths that we need to recognize. And of course, sometimes we may encounter the boredom in meditation. That means while we sit in meditation, somehow we feel so bored. It's so boring that we don't want to do anything else. Of course, we need to recognize that with meditation, it could help us to calm the mind. It could help us to transform mental afflictions So with that kind of understanding, we will put some effort to sit in meditation. Otherwise, if we just sit there and wait for the lock, there's no way for us to move further. And of course, if we have that mind, uh, um, and if we feel it's so boring, there's no for us to pursue our spiritual path. It's not easy for us to focus our mind. So we would have the urge to stand up and do things that we want to. And that's why it's important for us to recognize this. And the next one is what they call the breathlessness and worriness. So we have this kind of what they call mind charting. That's mean in our mind is always thinking. It is like the wave of the oceans. It's never stop. For example, many people they have problem with sleeping. Even physically, they want to rest, but mentally they cannot calm down the mind because during the day they have all kind of mental activities like dealing with all kind of problems, challenging, do all kind of uh, people and so forth. With those image, sound, and so forth. Uh, at night, even late at night, those information, um, uh, image or sound reappear in their mind again, and that keep them awake, and they couldn't sleep. And what happened if they lost their sleep in the next morning? Uh, Physically and mentally, they be tired, and they could not go on for the next day activities. That's why somehow we need to find some way to calm the mind, and don't wait until we lost our sleep to do meditation. We need to do the practice in the daily basic, whether it's in the morning or in the evening. So depend upon our schedule. And of course, we may only need to spend 1 minute at a time to do the practice. So let me show you some video clips about anxiety. You see how much problems we have to deal with. Again, that's one of the example that we have in our mentality.
I was so uncomfortable at that party. It was hard for me to breathe, and I got all sweaty. I had to leave.
I won't go to sleep or leave the house unless I've made sure the stove is off and the doors are locked. Sometimes I do this 3 or 4 times.
I have to get to the airport 5 hours early. You just never know what might happen. These are the voices of people who have experienced anxiety. Anxiety is a common reaction to life events, like taking a final exam or speaking in front of a crowd. But when it becomes really uncomfortable and makes day-to-day life hard to live, then it's a problem, or even what we call a disorder. I know. I've lived with anxiety for a long time. My own anxiety feels like it's about everything. I worry about so many things in so many ways, and it impacts my life big time. I stress about things that are about to happen or might happen, and it means I can't really focus on where I am or who I'm with. Sometimes my heart pounds, I speak really fast, and I kind of snap at people. My family gets really frustrated. When it's really bad, I have a knot in my stomach all the time. I can even feel depressed, and then I just want to be alone. I feel like if I do something, I'll screw it up or something will go wrong. So a lot of times, I'd just rather avoid it all. I feel feel so much better staying home and maybe having a drink. Turns out anxiety is a very common mental health symptom. It can be the main sign of generalized anxiety disorder, which I have, or social anxiety disorder, which is when people have a fear of being in public or meeting new people. For those of us with social or generalized anxiety disorders, it's really difficult to live the way we want to live. Some people have anxiety about really specific things. They are afraid of heights, snakes, spiders, or something else. These are called phobias. And when people avoid these things, anxiety mostly stays away. But when people can't avoid their phobias, it is a real problem. Some people experience anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder, or obsessive compulsive disorder, which can make people really overcome with anxiety. In these conditions, anxiety can be so intense that people are at risk for suicide, and they use alcohol or drugs to cope. And sometimes their lives feel like they come to a halt. I'm one of the lucky ones. My doctor told me how to get the treatment that would help me, and it did. I understand now what my anxiety feels like, when it happens, and what I can do about it. I learned some great coping skills, and even just naming it keeps it in perspective. Sometimes my anxiety can still get pretty big, but it doesn't seem to last quite as long as it used to. My anxiety was treatable. For most people, this is true. You can get your life back to where you want it to be. I know. I've got mine back.
Okay, you see here. So anxiety is one of the, in the Western term, mental disorder. But in Buddhist views, it's treatable. It's just one of the mental fluctuation that we need to recognize, especially when we working in meditation. We need to recognize why we worry, why we have that type of anxiety, why we have the restlessness in our mind, or why we have what they call in the Zen traditions the monkey mind that jump from one branch to others. So as long as we recognize them, it's easy for us to deal with them. And again, uh, we have the tools to control them, to transform them by doing meditation. So it's like here, the Buddha give analogy, the mind like the waves on the water surface is moved by the winds, with one wave to another's. Our minds always rolling, never stop. But with meditation, with focusing on the present moment, instead of swimming back to the past and the future, eventually I might be calm. And of course, in order to calm down our mind, we need to recognize our feeling, our emotion that we discussed before. We recognize that any kind of feeling, sensation, or emotion, they come and go. Whether we have good feeling, bad feeling, whether we happy or sad, whether we feel frustrated or happy, they come and go. With that type of understanding, it's easy for us to let go of them. For example, one moment that we feel sad, and if we have the wisdom to contemplate and recognize that type of sadness, we remind ourselves, oh, it's just one of the emotions, it's just one of the feelings. It would be fading away soon or later. And with that type of recognition, eventually that type of sadness, frustration would be fading away. Otherwise, if we think, oh, they are true, they are real, and with that type of attachment, they overwhelm us. So we don't want to let those emotions to control us. We don't want to get lost of those emotions. We want to control them. We want to calm them down. We want to transform them so that we can remain calm and peaceful. And that's why we need to use any means, especially meditation, to come. That's why we need to recognize the present nature or impermanent nature of those feelings or emotions. And the last one we want to discuss is what we call skeptical doubt. So we have all kind of doubts, especially if we sit in meditation. We may have the doubt that whether we can calm our mind or not, whether we have the wisdom or not, or whether we can control our mind or not. There's all kind of doubt that become the obstruction of our practice. And that is why the Buddha lists here uh, is considered as a type of hindrance, obstruction that we need to overcome. Yeah, so especially when we have the negative experience in the past, it's easy for us to have the doubt. For example, let's say if we encounter some difficulties in sitting meditation, suppose like when we pull our legs up to sit in full lotus, even half lotus, it's so painful for us to sit in that type of position for a while, and we may have a doubt that why do we need to torture ourselves by sitting in that type of situation, that kind of position or posture? Why don't we stand up and do something else meaningful? Of course, to dispel the doubt, we need to recognize that it's not time for us to calm our mind. This is our effort to uh, uh, bring back our attention to the breath or any kind of object of meditation. You need time. Like I gave the story that the Buddha told his student that you need time for the lake water to calm down before taking the water to drink. So there is a mind. So with that kind of understanding, it's easy for us to overcome any kind of doubt. Of course, having the doubt sometimes is useful, especially in politics, uh, uh, in ethics, in laws. We may ask some question whether it's according to the laws, whether they are ethical or not, and so forth. But if we have so much doubts about ourselves, that means we could not believe that we have ability to calm our mind down. There's no way for us to do the practice, especially if we have what we call low self-esteem. So we need to transform it. And if we don't believe in ourselves, if we don't have that type of confidence, there's no way for us to do anything else, not talk about meditations. That's why the important thing is to let go or to recognize the self-doubt that cause the low self-esteem. And another thing is that we need to trust that we can overcome any kind of mental afflictions with our practice and meditations. And of course, before, um, people could not trust much about the benefit of meditation, but nowadays all kind of articles has been written by many researchers, scientists, doctors, and so forth. And plus, on the top, that is all kind of uh, um, uh, tests that happen on the brains, what we call neuroscience, or all kind of research that have done about the benefit of meditation and so forth. That's why eventually people could trust the science communities that have proved the benefit of meditation. And with that type of understanding, we could trust ourselves enough that as long as we put the effort in doing meditation, we could overcome handicap difficulties. So let me sum up one more time that the Buddha in general reminds us that we need to overcome the five hindrances, the sensual desire, the ill will, the sloth and torpors, the restlessness and worriness, the skeptical doubt. They are the mental object of phenomena that we need to overcome and be mindful of that. So time is up. Let me stop here today, and we will discuss next time. Again, Nam Mô Shakyamuni Buddha.